So we're back then with another guide video for Marvel's Avengers. Now before we do go in and we start breaking all this down, I'm trying to test out a few things in YouTube, so I have a very small favour to ask. If you can go and leave a comment in this video, if you can actually do it straight away now by the end of the video if you want, you can edit it, you can change it to something to do for the video, but for the purpose of this video, if you are watching it, leave a comment below, because I'm actually doing some tests in regards to engagement and how it actually affects videos, so it'll be very interesting to see, and I'll even update you on what the results of this are once I do actually get them. But the video in question, we're going to be looking at the 10 priority sets that are available for characters in the game. That's the exotic sets. Normally you can only actually farm them once a week. We've got an upcoming 2-weekly event. It's the Priority Mission Rush. It's running from January the 13th to January the 27th. When that is on, you can actually do the priority missions once per day as opposed to once per week. So you've got a much higher chance of getting your exotics. Of course, that's if you're not a time traveller like most of us actually are. But if you can't be bothered doing this, then this is an alternative solution for you. So what I'm going to do is run through each of the 10 different characters. I've got updated infographics for them, and I'll let you know which characters I would recommend you actually farm on during this week for this particular event, and also some exotics you want to try and keep an eye out for as well. So let's dive in. We'll start off with Black Panther first. Now, just before we do go in and we actually break this down, one thing I'll mention: if you're a new player, each of these 4 pieces, you can see that you have set stats that actually drop on them. Because they're exotics, the stat rolls will be higher than legendaries. So if you are a new player, if you're perhaps just trying to get your foot in the door and get good stats on your gear pieces before worrying too much about the perks, a lot of these gear pieces will actually be a lot more useful. But for the purpose of this video, I'll really be concentrating on the pieces that have good stats and good perks as well. So for Black Panther, the ones I would recommend looking out for in him would be slots 3 and 4. That's your defense and your heroic. So your defense one, you've actually got the middle perk here. It's a 20% increase in stun, status and all damage of intrinsic attacks. I believe we've got some raid gear that can make so essentially every attack on Black Panther is an intrinsic attack, so that's an increase in 20% of stun, status and damage all the time, which is really pretty amazing. You've also got the bottom perk on this. Defeated enemies while Percussive Blast is active will extend the duration of the ability by 2.5 seconds. You can get various buffs on the back of that. The next gear piece then, as mentioned, it's the heroic one. This one's fantastic. I use this on my Black Panther myself. So you've got Bass Chosen Amplification, 20% increased damage and defense while Bass Chosen is active. Increase the duration of Bass Chosen by 8.5 seconds, helps you get that 100% uptime on it. And then melee attacks slowly regenerate willpower while Percussive Blast is active as well. That ties in with the slot 3. So that's Black Panther. I would recommend going for slots 3 and 4 on him. We have Black Widow up next here. Her pieces are actually really pretty underwhelming. For veteran players, I can't recommend anything. For relatively new players, I would actually recommend probably slots 2 and 4 can be a good starting point for her. So the slot 2, which is a range one, it's got the precision, proficiency and intensity stats, so that's nice, but it's got the double variable effect, so it'll be a status effect on a ranged attack. And what you're looking for, if you're like me in regards to how you actually play her, if you're ranged Black Widow, you can get one status on her magnum shots, for example, and then one on the pistols, because I like to switch between the two of them, so it's good to have a status effect on both of them. The third perk down, the aim assistance, isn't really useful at all, but again, a decent starter piece. Same probably applies to an extent for the slot 4, which is the heroic. It's certainly not amazing or anything like that, but if you're a newer player, this can be a decent starting point to actually aim for. Next up here we have Captain America, another underwhelming character unfortunately. There's only one gear piece I can recommend. It may have changed, it's hard to tell because there's not a lot of people actually farming and updating the likes of the science table and so on in this game. So with some of these infographics, there might be 1 or 2 perks that has slightly changed. I think this Captain America one may be one. If you do actually get it dropping, if you're farming it, and it is different from what we've got on screen here, then do let me know. But the only one I would recommend is your melee slot 1. It's actually really pretty amazing, so hopefully it hasn't changed. It's the third perk down, Brazen Jarvis Barrier, so a % chance when hitting an enemy with a melee crit attack to activate a Jarvis barrier. That works absolutely awesome on Cap, because if you're playing him as you should be, as a tank, not a ranged Cap, no matter how much damage it puts out, Cap should be played as a tank. If you're playing him as that, then you'll be getting a real benefit from the Jarvis barrier, because it's a set amount of his maximum willpower. So it's just a slot 1 there. Once again, if there has been any changes to it and you do notice it, then let me know in the comments below. Next up we have my main man Clint. He's actually got 3 gear pieces I would recommend. One is probably for newer players, one is for intermediate, and then one regardless of your build you want to run, unless of course you've got really lucky in the raid where you can get one of the perks. But the gear piece is the one for your newer players. You can do well with the slot 2, which is a range one. You've got the good stats on it, you've got your variable status effects, but the third perk down, it can give you increased damage, stun and status amounts by 20% for one of the 3 main arrow types as well. The intermediate gear piece you could go for, which could be useful, would be the slot 4, the heroic one. You've got locked on breaker, so increase in damage and impact when locked on is active. You've got increases the amount of willpower recovered and duration of recovery arrow by 10 seconds. That's actually great in raids. And then you've got your third perk down, 15% increase in willpower and heroic energy while locked on is active as well. If you're running an intrinsic build and you have that up often, then that can certainly be decent. The gear piece, it's amazing and all Hawkeyes want to run it, and this is how perks should have been done in the game, but Hawkeye's the only character that's really got one that's interesting. This possibly THOR as a push. He's got one where he throws out his hammer and it comes back and hits off enemies, which is nice, but Hawkeye's probably got the best perk in the game. So this particular one, it's the third perk down. It increases the projectiles fired by split shot arrow and splintering fire by 2. Now that applies to all of them. So when you use Bag of Tricks on Hawkeye, I believe his arrows go from 9 to a whopping 15. So although you're not getting precision or anything like that on this slot 3, it is absolutely amazing if you're running a Bag of Tricks build, and the majority of Hawkeye players are. So that's the ones I would recommend for Hawkeye. Let's check out Hulk next. So the next character we have here then is Hulk. He's unfortunately another underwhelming one. There's only one gear piece I could recommend, but it is really pretty decent on him. The stats are nice. You don't have might, but you've got Valor and Resolve, which are fantastic on Hulk, and the perks are pretty nice as well. It is the slot 4, the heroic one, but the perks on this are Aggressive Might, increase the damage dealt to taunted enemies by 20%. You can taunt them via Bone Shaker, and then Heroic Assistance, increase charge rate of heroic support ability by 18%. That's your Bone Shaker, so you can taunt more often. And then the final perk ties in with it as well. A percent chance of defeating taunted enemies grants a damage buff. So overall, this is really an actually pretty decent gear piece. This one and one that I would recommend farming. For Iron Man then, there's only really 2 gear pieces I would recommend. They are probably beginner pieces, at least one of them is a beginner piece. One of them is a piece that I think could potentially be interesting on a build. I've always wanted to test it out, but I've never got round to it. The beginner gear piece here would be the ranged one, so that can be nice because you've got your set stats of course, and then you've got increased damage while you're overcharged as well, so you've got to spam all your missiles for example, and you'll be getting increased damage on them. The other one I would possibly recommend for a laser Iron Man build, and again it's something I've always wanted to test out but never got round to it, is a slot 1, the Doom Fists. You've got Skyguard Dynamo, so grants 10 points of intrinsic energy when collecting heroic orbs. With a laser build you'll be doing a ton of takedowns, which means you'll be generating a ton of heroic orbs, which means you can then get intrinsic energy to keep doing your laser attacks. Once again, never actually tried it myself. If you have tried it and have used this gear piece and it's actually worked out well, then do let me know in the comments below. So we have Kate Bishop up next here, another disappointing set unfortunately. I would say there's only one I could recommend for newer players. It's your range slot 2, you've got your set stats and then you've got 2 perks that can give you a higher chance of getting your status damage on your attack of choice. It'll most likely be the Scatter Shot Arrow, that's what it's called. It's been so long since I've played Kate, but any Kate players that agree or disagree with this, do let me know. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, only really the slot 2, and it's just really for newer players. We're seeing a bit of a trend here, another underwhelming set. The only one I would recommend would be the slot 4, that's the heroic one. This is if you are running an Embiggen build. It's got the Valor and Resolve that'll work great with that, but Embiggen Blitz is the first perk. 10% increased damage from Embiggen, ultimate heroic charge, so you can get an Embiggen even quicker, get higher uptime on it, and then increased willpower regen from Embiggen as well. They're not amazing or anything like that, but certainly better than the other gear pieces. So yeah, just one for Miss Marvel, and that's the heroic slot 4. So we have Spider-Man up next here. Because he's one of the more recent characters, he actually has got better perks. They've slightly moved in a better direction. They've got a long way to go, but you can see some of the perks in Spider-Man are better than some of the other earlier heroes we've actually looked at. In regards to gear pieces, I would strongly recommend gear piece 1 and 3. They're actually both really pretty amazing. Your melee slot 1 has got Wrecking Ball Enhancer, so increased damage reduction in all normal damage while Wrecking Ball is active. And then your slot 3, the defensive one, you've got Wrecking Ball Protector, increase the damage and duration of Spider Sense by 3 seconds while Wrecking Ball is active. Wrecking Ball Rampage, defeating enemies while Wrecking Ball is active will extend your duration of the ability by 2.5 seconds. This essentially allows you to get 100% uptime on the buff from this. And then Spinneret Destruction, 15% increase in status, crit chance and damage of web shooter attacks. The middle perk is the main one we're going for because it allows you that 100% uptime on the buffs you get from activating his ultimate. So yeah, definitely go for slots 1 and 3 if you're on PlayStation, I suppose, and you're running Spider-Man. We finish up here with THOR, an amazing hero, but unfortunately pretty underwhelming in regards to his gear. The only one I would recommend, again, it's going to be for intermediate players, I would say. It would be your heroic slot 4. You've got Lethal Jarvis Barrier. This is actually nice, a chance to get Jarvis Barrier when you defeat an enemy, and then you've got the ultimate heroic charge rate as well there. And on top of that, you've got your Valor, Resolve, and potentially Precision if you are running a range build on him. Many players seem to be at the moment. But that is all the priority sets. I know there's not a great deal that I would actually recommend in there, but I'm putting this out so you can see what's there, so you can know if it's actually worthwhile farming. For some heroes it is, for the majority it actually isn't, which is a real shame, and I don't know if we'll really see much difference, to be honest. We're 15 months down the line with the game and we've not really seen a massive amount of change in regards to gear, so I think we're kind of set with what we're going to get for the lifetime of the game, unfortunately. But that's probably a different video. Now, if this has been helpful, take the time to hit the like, share and subscribe button. Once again, leave a comment below because I really want to see how much comments can actually change the engagement on a video. But yeah, thanks for tuning in for this. Stay safe. See you all again soon.